Every day's a chance you can do something amazing to feel your passion blazing and shine. Yeah.
Paint with every vision, dance in new directions, explode to new heights in your mind.
I will rise up with you today.
Lift up my voice.
Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Hello and welcome to AGNT Speaks. We are here to host a conscious conversation today. So AGNT Speaks is about practical application of spiritual principles in our lives and in our world. I am Reverend Erin McCabe, and I serve here at Unity Village Chapel at Unity headquarters. And I am delighted to host you today. And each week we bring on another member of our leadership council for the Association for Global New Thought for a conscious conversation. We have a passion for awakening mindfulness, inspiring mindful action, and cultivating care in our lives and in our world. So thank you for joining us. For anyone who is listening or participating for the first time, we have a Zoom room available. So if you want to get up close and personal, you can hop into that Zoom room. And you can also share this broadcast, share this information by sharing the event. It's simple to register, and just fill out your information and you will get a customized link so that you can hop in and ask questions, engage in meaningful conversation after our dialogue today. So it is my delight to welcome Reverend David Alexander. He serves at the Spiritual Living Center in Atlanta, Georgia, and he is coming to us live from there. So thank you, David, for being here with us today. And I'm sure there is a lot on your heart and on your mind. This time seems to never be void of the need for conscious conversations and systematic change through changing our conscious awareness, what we're aware of, what we take action on, and really being mindful about co-creating a world that works for all. So I know you have a lot to share this morning, and I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Wonderful. Well, good morning. And thank you so much. It's such an honor to serve with my colleagues on the Leadership Council for AGNT and to be here today. You know, you're right. There's just so much, there's always so much going on. It's, you know, that never ends. But I'm hoping and praying that our consciousness is stepping into not just the next wave of things that hit us and how do we respond and how do we be with that, but that we are stepping up to the next layer of what is ours to do.
Yes.
That's kind of really my fervent heart's desire with all that's going on. You know, we can pick so many things, reaction to the Chauvin, the Derek Chauvin trial and the guilty verdict there, which, you know, for me and my family was certainly welcomed news, but I'll be honest with you, not expected. And that, you know, sort of a sad commentary on our state of things. I remember that day hearing, oh, it's going to be coming. And I thought I was preparing myself for the difficult conversations with my wife, with my 16-year-old son, with, you know, preparing for a difficult night of consoling and kind of trying to find some thread of hope to hang on to. And all of this was moving through my mind when I was in a board meeting when the news came. And, you know, we were, of course, you know, relieved. But then we had, you know, Dante Wright and the young woman in Ohio, and now this case in North Carolina. I mean, it's just never ends. There's always something. So really what I want to talk today about is what I'm doing in terms of, you know, guiding and leading my own spiritual community in this. And this past Sunday, I don't know what clip we have to show of me, so I hope it's not the same, but maybe it is, and if it is, that's okay. But I talked about this concept that's in the book, Good to Great, and it's called the Stockdale Paradox. If you've read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, it's in there. Although the more I think and contemplate on it, I think calling it the Stockdale Paradox is actually a very kind of white thing to do, but I'll I'll unpackage that maybe in a minute. But it comes from this lieutenant or colonel, I think it was in the armed forces, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 8 years and tortured every day and all of that. And when he was interviewed, when he was finally released and brought home and able to reunite with his family, he was interviewed and they said, well, you know, tell us how you survived, of course. And he would talk about that. And they would say, well, tell us about, what about the people who didn't make it? What was, because he talked about his mindset and how he framed the situation that he was in and how he kept a positive mindset, but also was really confronting, you know, the reality that he was in. And in the paradox to that, they said, well, tell us about the people who didn't make it. And he said, oh, that's easy. The people who didn't make it, they were the optimists. And that's what kind of stops people in their tracks, right? When you read the story, you go, well, wait, what do you mean the optimists? Because the people who didn't make it were the ones who kept saying, oh, we'll be out by Christmas. And then Christmas came and Christmas went. And then they would say, oh, well, we'll be out by Easter. And then Easter would come and Easter would go. Oh, we'll be out by Thanksgiving. Easter would come, or Thanksgiving would come, Thanksgiving would go. And then it would be Christmas again. And he said, and then they died of a broken heart. And he said, so what I had to do, and those of us who made it out, was we had to do two things simultaneously. We had to keep a unwavering faith in our ability to make it. But that unwavering faith wasn't in something out there. It wasn't Christmas coming or Easter coming or Thanksgiving. It was the strength within us. It was an internal power that we could rely on, that's unshakable. And then secondly, we had to face the hard facts. We had to have a brutal honesty with the facts in front of us, right? It's like, yeah, we're gonna make it out of this. We don't know when. And right now, this is where we are, right? This is the present reality. And there's no sugarcoating that, there's no glossing, there's no affirming that away, there's no, and so for me, that notion is, I think, really important for the New Thought movement to kind of take a breath and take that in, right? Because we're really good about the unshakable faith, right? God is all there is, love is all there is, and it's all gonna work out. There's all conscious evolution. Every bad news that we encounter is simply about the conscious evolution of the planet, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we got that part down.
That's right.
You know, but I wonder about our capacity to have brutal conversations about what is actually so.
Yes. Yes.
It's like,
And it's so critical, because otherwise you develop this Pollyanna or this, idea of, we're spiritual beings. So the human condition doesn't matter. Human suffering doesn't matter. When I was reading the news last night, in North Carolina, and looking and going, oh my gosh, father to a 4-year-old, like, oh, it's just, we are invited to feel this. We are invited to feel this and look at the hard reality of this, so that we don't mute ourselves, because that's the only way to really become an active engager, to actively engage our world, not to just wish things away and not do anything. Oh, and it is brutal. It is brutal. It's a full-bodied experience, and it takes a spiritual practice.
Somebody asked, do you feel better after the Chauvin trial? And I said, no. I've got a 16-year-old son that within the next year or so will, have a driver's license and be out there, in the world. And what that case showed me was that in order to get any semblance of justice, which it wasn't justice, right? Justice would have been that George Floyd could have, would have been picked up off the ground, still handcuffed, put in the car, taken downtown, fingerprinted, arrested for his attempted use of a fake $20 bill, and then released, or, you know, serve his punishment and then back with his family. That would have been justice. What we had in that case, in that trial, was accountability, and that was good. But that doesn't make me feel better, because what it showed me was that for my son, if he were to be stopped for something, that my only real hope of any semblance of accountability and or justice is a host of eyewitnesses on the sidewalk with their cell phones out, you know, street footage from other cameras, a 9-minute video, you know, police officers coming and speaking and saying, no, that's not our practice. Like this whole mountain of stuff that made it obvious about what this particular case was. And yet we still held our breath, wondering whether a guilty verdict actually would come. And you saw it in the lieutenant who, you know, so the red light's going in the back as he's driving at night, and he thinks to himself, thank God he had the presence of mind to say, I need to get to a well-lit place. I'm not going to pull over on the side of this dark road. And so he goes to a gas station. He knows that there will be other cameras there and all of that. Like, that's what it takes. There was a 17-year-old young man who was being pulled over, African-American, and I don't remember where this occurred now, but wasn't that long ago. And he drove to his mother's house, right?
Yes.
He stopped
Yes.
in front of his mother's house, and
saw
she
that.
came out, right?
Yeah.
And she physically put her body between her and the officer and said, if you want to get to him, you got to go through me first. Like, that's what, and so that is still the brutal facts of what, you know, my family and tons of other families, all families that have people of color, whether by adoption, birth, or whatever the case may be, that's still the brutal reality. The brutal reality is that white supremacy and a systemic, pervasive presence of unconscious bias is baked into policing. It's baked into all of these things. And the brutal reality is we need to confront that. That's why, you know, forgive the segue to a plug, but that's why our work at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta has culminated in the release of a workbook, which I think previously I probably have talked about, but we have now gone to print, and it's out in some forms right now, but will be out more widely available beginning in July. But we've released a 12-step style workbook on racism or anti-racism work, and it's called Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness. And it invites people either individually or in group settings to do the real work of dismantling the structures of knowing that keep us from our wholeness in a 12-step style.
Thank you for sharing that. And we'll make sure to post that on the AGNT Facebook page so people can have information about that workbook.
Yeah, thank you. So what else? We want to keep going?
Well, what do you have for people as far as, you know, the spiritual practice around this and presencing, you know, what's going on in the world, and the conversation that you're having about, you know, having a firm faith, right? Having a firm faith in our internal abilities, having faith in the spiritual condition, kind of lifting up, not necessarily just overcoming the human condition, but lifting up the human condition, and being able to create healthy systems, create working systems, create systems that honor all and honor the divinity of life in all. And also being with the kind of the brutal honesty of the facts, as you mentioned. What would you tell people as far as, you know, presencing this, how to do that work, how to engage the spiritual practice, how to look at the news and be with this continual kind of onslaught of, you know, depressing stories, sad state of conditions, heartbreaking reality that is going on? How do you engage in the spiritual practice with that? And how do you call forth the highest?
Yeah, it's, well, for me, it's just breathing, daily meditation. And the, you know, the Stockdale Paradox kind of speaks to what that looks like, right? It is It is investing in that unwavering faith that there is a power within you that is greater than any circumstance. There is a power in the universe that is greater than any condition. That power is eternal. That power is everlasting. That power is infinite in its capacity to reach and to be expressed in, through, and as us, and it lives in you right now. So lean on that, lean into that, be fed by it, and nurture your awareness of that through your spiritual practice, reading and meditation and spiritual community and all of those things. And have simultaneously have a brutally honest conversation about where you are. And this doesn't just apply to the work that we're doing in like the workbook, Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness. This applies in anything, right? It's the conversation like, how do you eat an elephant, right? There's an elephant in the room. It's literally a white elephant, right? Pun intended. How do you do that? One bite at a time, right? So if this was a prosperity session, we would say, okay, if you're dealing with debt, right, understand that prosperity is your divine nature. The universe is infinite, and prosperity is expressed in, through, and as all of life and all creation. Look at the flowers, look at the bees, look at the grains of sand, the stars in the sky, etc. And one step at a time, one day at a time, one payment at a time, you tick away at that debt or whatever it is that is holding you back. You make a plan and you stick with it. And you don't sugarcoat it. You don't deny that it's not there. You don't pretend like the debt isn't real. You handle it. And as you handle it, you begin to lean into your faith and realize that the sustaining power of who you are is bigger than that condition. And then suddenly you wake up one day and you've made your last payment. Right? It's amazing. You do that in relationships, you do that in your physical health, you do that in anything. And we need to do the exact same thing when it comes to race relations. That's why I came to the conclusion that we needed a 12-step model for dealing with white supremacy and to do anti-racism work, because I realized it's like, this is one day at a time, one step at a time. Right? We see these cases, we see this stuff in the news, and we realize our lives have become unmanageable. But there is a power in the universe greater than we are that can restore us to sanity.
Yeah, that really is very helpful. And that is a good basis and a good framework, because recovery work only works when there is commitment. And it is a commitment to something that is it's a sustaining issue. It's not like you can just do it once and for all and it's gone. It's something that takes a practice. And without that commitment, and it's also something that takes more than yourself, as far as, yes, the higher power and the spiritual practice, and yes, community. And in order to really shift the reality, because that's a good even analogy of, someone's life that is plagued with addiction, that is not working because of addiction. There's so many facets to kind of revealing the wholeness there and experiencing the healing. It can't just be done in one meeting. It can't just be done in one class, but you have to have a sustained commitment to your recovery. And that is what we need in the collective, as far as race, as far as systematic change, as far as elevating our systems. I think that commitment and this practice on the human condition and on the spiritual level, it kind of has probably more, but at least 3 elements in that commitment. And one is to the spiritual practice, to keep yourself spiritually fed and grounded, to keep drawing in wisdom and using divine intelligence and imagination and inspiration. And then it takes educating yourself. So learning, like you were talking about the prosperity principles, you can't shy away from learning. We have to educate ourselves about what's going on. And then it takes brutal honesty at looking at our own blind spots. It takes brutal honesty at looking at the situation we're living in or what we're co-creating, just like in an unhealthy relationship dynamic. It takes being vigilant about seeing what's really going on. How am I contributing to that? How am I bringing in factors that are destructive or helpful? And without the brutal honesty, without educating ourselves, and without a practice, that commitment is nothing. But with those 3 things, we do have a recovery system that is proven to make shift in our own independent individual lives and in the collective.
Exactly, exactly. And it can only begin when you're ready, right?
Absolutely.
Right. That's the other piece. We put out some stuff. We put out the book. I've got it right here. So you can see it's a big workbook, and it's filled with like how to walk through the steps and kind of, do the steps, guidance. And it was a team of us that came together, people of color, part of my practitioner corps, and an editor in California, who's a champion of the project. And we took about 6 months to do this as a team. And we're very, very proud of it. But when you say recovery from the lie of whiteness, it begins to offend people, right? People go, well, what do you mean? But, and some people argue. I've had, stuff on Facebook and stuff where they get really kind of belligerent about it. And when that happens, I just laugh and I go, that's the beauty of a recovery lens, right? You can't argue an alcoholic out of the bar. Right? If they're determined to continue to sit there, it's like, okay, well, when they're ready, we'll be over here doing the meeting, but when you want to come, here's the address. But we can't pull you out. We can't force you. That's the beauty of this lens, is that this work is here, ready for people who are willing to do it, ready for that sobering reality, that A, there's, again, a life force within you that's greater than you are, and B, that you have the courage to tell the radical truth about the conditions as they currently exist. And that we can be restored to sanity. We can be restored to our wholeness. We can be restored to a collective humanity that cares for each other. We can create a world that works for everyone. We can do this, but we can't do it without the commitment, the honesty, the continued education, all of those steps. So that's why we're excited about this body of work.
Well, thanks to you and everyone that participated in that to get that material out to everyone. So we appreciate the work that you've all put into that, and we see it transforming lives and transforming our collective experience of what it is to be on the planet together as a family. So thank you for that, David. Let's have a clip now from David.
But it's kind of like I use this illustration a lot in classes. And if you've taken a class with me, you've probably heard it before. I use this illustration of an island, right? If this carpet represented that I'm on the island of my knowing, I know every square foot, I know every inch, I know every fiber, every pattern that is in it, and everything that is part of the energy and vibration and area of it. And this is my border of the known, right? And beyond here is the unknown, and here is what I know. And so there's a measurement to how much of me bumps up against the unknown. But as I grow, you see, and again, the motivations for spiritual growth and development often in our lives is we want to become more, we want to expand, we want to know more of ourselves, we want to, again, be more confident, we want to have better relationships, all of those things. So I grow, and now the carpet gets twice as big. And so now it's okay, I've done these classes, I've done this work, I've learned how to use affirmations and meditation and own stuff in my own consciousness, forgiveness work. I know how to vision and bring things into my life through affirmation, all of that great stuff. So now, boom, the carpet is bigger. Now I've got more territory to play around with. Now there's more of me that I know. But as the carpet's gotten bigger, so has the border, or the parts of us, if you will, that bump up against the unknown. So it's kind of this bait and switch. We grow because we engage in spiritual growth because we want to be more confident. We want to say that we really know ourselves. But the truth is, as you continue to grow and expand, so does the opportunities for you to step into the unknown. So does more of the mystery. Right? So in other words, it's like, you probably heard the old spiritual saying, the more you know, the more you don't know. Right? The more you know, the more you bump up against the unknown, the more of the mystery you're engaged with. As that border expands, then the borderline or the territory in which the mystery gets to kind of wash things up on the shore of your life.
Thank you for joining us with AGNT Speaks, and we will see you next week. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoom room. Thank you for being here today. It's good to see all of your names here in the Zoom room. If anyone has a question, you can pop it up. We'll take a question here before we hop off. I liked Mary Lou's comment in the chat group. She said that sometimes people take comfort in their ignorance. And I think that's true. I think sometimes people, sometimes all of us, the less we know about it's like, oh, I just found a tax law the other day for church and tax law. And it was like, oh, I wish I didn't know about that. It was something about like, if you give a gift card to anyone, it's considered income and you need to record that. So like if a group, took care of someone, like say someone is hard for money right now and they're given a gift card, you're supposed to report that as income and like tax. They're supposed to pay tax on it. And it's like, what? I really wish I never heard that one. That just seems crazy. What are you talking about? If you help someone pay their utility bill, then you're supposed to, I'm sure that's not, practice, but it's true. Sometimes people want to stay in their ignorance, and especially when, it's subconsciously benefiting them. When we don't really maybe have full awareness of how either we benefit from being unconscious of something, or we think, oh, it's not ours to worry about that. But thanks for that comment, Mary Lou. So we'll just peek. We don't have any questions in the Q&A. Feel free to also chat a question, or, you can raise your hand if you want to come on screen with us. David, thanks for sharing your book. I know people are interested in getting that. And so thanks for putting that up in the group, and we'll make sure to put it on the AGNT page as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being here with us today, and everyone, we'll see you next week.